Well, here we are, Lagos, Nigeria world. Welcome to Freshly Pressed on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shokba Martins, and joining me for the next half hour, I have got two gentlemen analysts of Freshly Pressed. For a Thursday morning, it is Mr. C and Fidel. Good morning and good morning.
Good morning, Shockbird. Good morning, Mr. C. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Fiddle. Good morning, Lagos.
All right. And of course, we have you. Make sure you join in with your analysis. We're streaming live up on youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Leave a comment up on the live stream. You can also send your WhatsApp messages in to 0809 4440981. And we are using the hashtag freshlypressed981 up on Twitter. Remember that you can also tag us. We are at smooth981 FM on Twitter. Okay, so there we go. Let's get straight into it. The first article for the day comes in from the Vanguard newspaper. Kaduna train attack. As leaders, we owe victims and their relations an apology. This comes in from uh, uh, the Nigeria Governors Forum. Now, according to yesterday's statement by the NGF chairman and Ekiti State Governor Dr. Kaide Fayemi, this is one attack too many. It must stop. First, as leaders, we owe the victims and their relationships and their relations an apology, as these unwarranted acts of violence are becoming too regular and they basically question our collective capacity to govern. Let's hear from you, Fidel, on this response to the train attack and really to the wave of violence that we're seeing across the country.
I'm really shocked by it. It's sad. It's sad and it's pathetic, to say the least. But I kind of disagree with Dr. Okaide Fahmy. I think
Okay.
what they owe the victims more than an apology. They owe them justice, and it's there's a problem when the authorities start calling on the authorities to to do something. But I believe there needs to be more than an apology. There needs to be more than prayers. We can't keep calling God to solve our problems. I read the story, and he said, "Oh, God will grant those that lost their lives eternal peace." I mean, these things are nice, but I think what we need more actions. And I appreciate the fact that when it comes to security, there's only so much that state governors can do. But I feel like putting pressure, putting pressure, if there's if there's this unison between our state governors, they need to put more pressure on officers charged with security. For example, I'm expecting to see the state governors call on the head of our border control. I think is it DG or Controller General of customs, or those in charge of the borders, to
Okay.
ask them questions. People are moving because when we look at this thing called terror, because as far as I'm concerned, it's just a matter of semantics. Bandits, terrorists, it's semantics. These things are usually regional. Okay, so we have people who are moving inside Nigeria and outside Nigeria. Let's say within the sub-Saharan region, if you may. I expect the governors to put pressure on the executive to call out these men who are in charge of controlling our borders, security operatives, to tell them to give um, 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 an analysis of what exactly they are doing to ensure that there is justice. I don't think an apology is what we need here. I think we need justice. We need to ensure that these things do not repeat themselves.
All right. We do have more stories to get into now. So let's take a look at this story in from this day newspaper. Niger villages deserted as terrorists intensify attacks. Now, with no less than we've got no less than 1,000 villages having deserted their communities. This happening in Gurara, local government area of Niger State, and following sustained attacks by terrorists over the past 2 days. Um, at this point, Mr. C, I see your face, but really, we have the news is almost becoming a little bit of a cycle of just a continuous daily cycle of this attack happened here, this attack happened here. Fidel, you've already said that the governors owe more than apologies; they owe justice. But what is your take on this new this new news?
Okay. Thank you, Shopper. Now, this is not news, and for people who've been following the news for, say, the past 4 weeks or 7 weeks, on the 20th of March, the governor of Niger State came out to tell Nigeria that 12 out of the 25 local government areas in his state were controlled by bandits
Wow.
on the 20th of March this year, not last year,
Okay.
this year. So it just goes to follow that this story is a natural consequence of the bandits being in charge. Now, 12 out of 25, that is literally half of the state. Now, the bandits operated between Tuesday and Wednesday in their numbers. And as usual, the security agencies were nowhere to be found. Now, at least 1,000 Nigerians have been forced to leave their homes because of the fear of being abducted by these bandits or being asked to pay sums of money by these bandits.
Now, I'm going to tie this into a completely different story where we had Benue State Governor Ortam, who came out, according to media reports, and said to the people, you know what, when it comes to these herdsmen clashes, to rise up and defend yourselves. Is this the case of what we're going to be seeing now? Because as you're saying, security agencies.
So there's only so much you can do to a man. The moment his back touches the wall, figuratively, he has to react. He has to react if he's to preserve his life. Now we're slowly and steadily getting to the point where there will be less reliance on state actors who have incredibly failed in the performance of their duties and a resort to self-help. And when that happens, the level of violence in the country will increase. And this will also result in a huge proliferation of small, light, and heavy weapons circulating within the country.
Now, the question I would probably want to ask is at what point do we start talking about failed state status? Because if we see people in authority calling on people to, you know what, let's do self-help, which we've already been doing in other areas, but not in security for most parts. Although from previous years, we've seen communities who have been under siege go towards hiding weapons under their beds in order to protect themselves. At what point do we start to have the discussion about failed states?
So I think the discussion has already started, and we've already started resorting to self-help. It's the degree or extent that we're discussing here.
Mhm.
Amotekun is really self-help by the Southwest state government because the Nigeria police force and the federal security agencies have tremendously failed in carrying out their duties. Now, at the back of all of this, there's an underlying current, there's an underlying foundational problem, and that problem is, I would say, is a twin-headed hydra monster. One, it's a lack of proper education. Two, it's poverty. Now, by education, I simply do not mean passing through the four walls of the school because we continue to see individuals who have supposedly gone through a school but do not display any form of proper education in their thoughts or their actions. Now, there are also economic factors. Why do these people resort to this sort of life? Because they cannot survive and they're criminally minded. So until we solve the root problems, the root causes, we will continue to discuss these issues with increasing sadness and frustration.
Now let's talk about one of those underlying issues. And Fidel, I'll come to you for this one. From the Premium Times, number of poor people in Nigeria to reach 95 million in 2022. This according to the World Bank, which has said that the number of poor Nigerians is projected to hit 95.1 million in 2022. The bank made this known in its poverty assessment report titled "A Better Future for All Nigerians: 2022 Nigeria Poverty Assessment." And it goes on to the report went on to say that. This came about from the coronavirus COVID-19 crisis that was driving up the poverty rate. But even before the pandemic hit, we weren't doing so well. Fidel, what would you say to the information contained within the report?
Um, this is like a what I call it like a doomsday theory, where we have the World Bank giving us an analysis of the downward spiral with which the numbers of the number of poor people seems to be going. So we have 82 million, I beg your pardon, in 2018. The World Bank reported, and then it states that by somewhere between or before the end of 2022, it's not impossible that we would have 95 million people in poverty in Nigeria. Now, guess what? We're a country of over 200 million people. So, more than half the population is going to be in poverty. Now, make no mistake, when these numbers are being churned out, it's not talking about people who are just, struggling to get by, those who, have a business, but they're just, living from hand to mouth. They're not in these numbers, right? There are people who struggle to feed in this country. There are people who eat remains of what other people have eaten, leftovers, So those are the people the World Bank is referring to. And when we need to disabuse our mind from the fact that when we're in Lagos, right, we tend to see, oh, I mean, there are nice buildings in Victoria Island and Ikoyi. Where is the poverty? Let's not forget that Abuja and Lagos is not Nigeria, or it doesn't define Nigeria. Nigeria is way bigger than that. And when these numbers start to creep in, right, eventually to creep in, and we've seen that.
By the way, we've already seen the creep.
We've seen that, obviously. For example, look at how the population in Lagos keeps increasing. Why? Because people are looking for greener pastures, not because there are no opportunities outside Lagos, but there's security failure, there's infrastructure failure. And the World Bank alludes to that by saying Nigeria depends too much on crude oil. So once breeze blows and affects crude oil prices, it affects us. And it's even worse because we do not even process this oil. We still buy the oil that is already being processed. So
By the way, can I say that part of this is just talking about the fact that even though oil represented just 10% of GDP, it accounted for 80%, more than 80% of Nigeria's total exports, which means that whatever growth that we're seeing due to oil production is not going to reach people. It's just going to reach that less than 1% that is within that sector. So,
I mean, when we look at it, when we look at this crude oil thing, how many 80% of our GDP comes from crude oil. How many people know somebody who works in an oil company? Let's be honest, or works in the oil value chain, right? It's few and far. But this is the thing, Shobe. There are so many opportunities outside crude oil, even within the energy space, where Nigeria can grow. But if we keep relying on this crude oil, and the unfortunate part is that this publication or this paper presented by the World Bank is not so much of news to us, that we rely so much on crude oil.
It's been happening since the 70s.
We've known this for so long.
News.
It's not news. So I wonder why our those at the helm of affairs have refused to diversify our economy. For example, look at the Middle East, the Saudi Arabias, the Dubais. Now they rely on hospitality, they rely on services rather than even extracting things from the ground. And we must understand that we need to have we need to remove our mind from this crude oil, because eventually energy is going to change. Energy is going to move from the crude oil base.
I have a quick comment. The federal government did say that it will lift a certain number of Nigerians out of poverty, and the target was 100 million. So in 6 years or 7 years from 2015 to date, it will be interesting to know if they have lifted any Nigerian out of poverty.
Well, the Premium Times actually had a report on this because last year the president claimed said that his government had lifted 10.5 million Nigerians out of poverty. To which the Premium Times said, "Oh, let's investigate." Nope, fact check. No. All right, we've got your messages coming in. You can leave your comments up on the live stream on youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. You can also send WhatsApp messages in to 0809 444 Going to WhatsApp first before I check out YouTube. And on WhatsApp, Olaiwola from Igondo says, regarding the train bombing, this is quite pathetic. There are two sides to this one. First, the terrorist attacks are perpetrated in collusion with security agents. Second, the failing economy has emboldened them as they see a country devoid of the right leadership, says Olaiwola. Whilst Yemi from Marina says, concerning the train attacks, I have said this and will continue to campaign for it. Nigerians need to be allowed to carry light weapons. Huh. Okay, he says it's long overdue. The challenge is abuse, and there's a way to combat this through a robust background check and record keeping. I've seen what's happened at the stadium. I'm not sure about that. Let's move on. Foruche says, Mr. C, kudos to your detailed analysis. What also interests me most is when you're on the show. Oh, wow, this is just about Mr. C, not about the story. Is your systematic, coordinated, and articulate way of presentation. There you go, Mr. C. His head is shining right now. You can check it out on YouTube. And Jerry says the terrorists are hurrying up to take as many lands as possible as they can, since the government that is corporate. No, Jerry, there you go. You're just making statements, claims at this point. Um, wow. Thank you for sending in all your messages. Laolu Olagunju says, all this talk about reliance on crude oil. Petroleum is the only sector that you don't need to invest in heavily to make money. Every other sector requires investments in people and systems that, a lazy government will not do. Whilst Matthew Afolabi says, are we sure that our security officials don't compromise on their ethics by conniving with terrorists? At this point, it's speculation. And Fred from Festac says, don't think your leaders will diversify your economy because they are benefiting from the status quo. Same with the insecurity issues. Fred, have you disappeared? I thought you were in Festac. Isn't that part of Nigeria? Where did you? He started saying yours, not ours. And we've got more, but also we have more stories. So let's take a look at this next one. In fact, there's a message that I wanted to read earlier on because it's someone sent in a message saying very soon we'll see these terrorists repenting. Yeah, it was Ken. He said, very soon we'll see the men who attacked our train, killed and abducted passengers would then repent. And that kind of goes into our next story because we have this one in from the Guardian newspaper. Over 35,000 repentant terrorists for reintegration. This is according to Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State, who said this at an international conference tagged Lake Chad Basin, key steps towards comprehensive regional solutions. And this was in the United Kingdom. While he was presenting the paper, he said the rate of defection and surrender by the terrorists, as well as liberated communities, were high with an average of 200 to 300 people per day. All right, Fidel. So on the topic of, or rather, Mr. C, on the topic of repentant terrorists for reintegration, what say you?
Okay, thank you, Shakwa. So, the Borno State Governor has been a strong advocate of the policy of readmitting repentant terrorists from Boko Haram or Islam. Now, it's instructive to point out to our listeners that a lot of these defectors and a lot of these terrorists surrendering are only surrendering as a result of the fallout between Boko Haram and ISWAP. Sometime last year, there was an internal fight for supremacy between both factions, and the ISWAP faction won. And that led to the death of Shekau, the wanted Boko Haram leader, who died as a result of injuries sustained from his arrest by ISWAP fighters. Now, 35,000 of these individuals, according to the Borno State Governor, have repented. The first question that crosses my mind and continues to cross my mind is, how do you conclusively and effectively determine when an individual is repentant? Are they repentant because they truly disavow the lives they once led? Or are they repentant because their faction is no longer in charge? Two, what is the benefit of receiving all these guys? Because when they defect, it will be reasonable to expect that they will come with troves of information as to operations, as to how they conduct their affairs. I don't know what quantum of information or intelligence they're giving the Nigerian security agencies. Now, three, there's a real, clear, and present danger that if they are not truly and fully repentant, they will be rehabilitated and reinserted into Nigerian communities with that ideological brainwashing still existing in their minds and constitute a future source of problems. Now, when you say you're reintegrating them, what exactly are they supposed to be doing? Are you giving them an economic activity to participate in? How are you engaging their time? Because really, an idle mind is fertile ground for all sorts of mischievous and wonderful thoughts.
Now, thank you, Mr. C, for that, because there were so many questions I had with regards to this in terms of, and you've already touched on some of them, but also even with, let's say, 100% repentance that they have completely let go and it was because of something within their spirit. um what about community engagement? What exactly is the process of the reintegration? Because then again, it would now also speak to, is there a recidivism rate? Are we tracking recidivism whereby they then fall back into old ways, whether as a result of not being accepted by the community or just, not having anything to do?
So these are questions that only the authorities can answer. And above all, are they taking into consideration the feelings of the people, the loved ones, of the families of people who have been lost to the activities of Boko Haram and ISWAP? Because it appears as if they're forcefully integrating them into communities. And if the communities reject them, like you pointed out, are they going to return to the forest? Are they going to pick up arms again? There are a lot of questions, and I truly wish we had more answers.
Mm. Now, I've got this message in from Gilbert Musa from FESAC, who says, on the World Bank report on poverty, let's ask ourselves what action has been taken since 1981 when Nigerians were complaining about unfavorable living conditions. Also in 1962, the premier of the Eastern region, Dr. Michael Okbara, advised professionals like doctors, engineers, etc., to focus on communal farming, that it aids the development of any nation. Did we work on this advice? Whilst this message, apology from Magodo says, a larger effect of the displacement of the Gurara community in Niger State is the hydropower plant in that location will not be operational and clearly reduces the potential for electricity power sufficiency in the country. Okay. I see all your messages coming in. Thank you. I'll try and read as many of them as possible, but we have more stories. Now, let's take a look at this one. Senate passes witness protection bill to boost war against corruption. This in from This Day newspaper happened yesterday, Wednesday, when they passed the Witness Protection and Management Bill 2022 to boost the current war against corruption. And it came as a result of a report by the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, and Legal Matters. So I'd love to get your opinion on that, Fidel.
I mean, on the face of it, it seems like a good one. So what the Senate just passed is a witness protection bill. For example, when people are sort of informants for the authorities when it comes to cracking down on corruption cases or people who have been accused of mismanagement of government funds, if these informants can provide useful information, even though it might threaten the safety, their safety or the safety of their family, the system will have a way of protecting them. Now, on the face of it, it looks good. So now there's going to be, when you set up this kind of system, you're going to have a program or a commission sort of. So they're going to be people on a payroll, right? They're going to be people on a payroll, and they're going to. I mean, I haven't seen the bill. I haven't seen that it's been passed. So I haven't seen what it looks like, but I'm just thinking, right? It's kind of what it's kind of enters into what the police is supposed to do or what the justice system is supposed to do. Will it properly be implemented with respect to funding? How do you take care of these people after years of protection? I mean, even in other climes in the US, people are worried about how their own witness protection system works. So let's see how this one will go anyway.
All right. Well, but you know what? There's something to this because when we have such large amounts of money being thrown around, it's nice if we can make sure there's a little buffer against the corruption. From the Premium Times, FEC approves 1 billion naira lie detector and night vision glasses for NDLEA. Is something that people started to question and talk about yesterday. Now, the AGF Abubakar Malami says the technological equipment has the capacity to detect whether someone is speaking the truth or lying in the course of investigation. Okay, let's hear from you, Mr. C, on what. Let's hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shaka. So yesterday, the Executive Council, as it is usual practice, sat down to award contracts. So the bigger question is, beyond awarding contracts every Wednesday, do they actually do any serious work? Now, they've awarded a contract for an an eye line detection scanner, right? And from all the reports I've read, because I've carefully checked across the media outlets, and it appears it's only one scanner they're going to buy. Now, the price quoted is about 400, and I want to get the exact amount. So the price quoted is 498,500,000 naira for one scanner. I went online and I checked. It costs $4,000. It's just that we don't do brand names here. We don't do brand names here. I have the article. Anyone, if you hit me up on Twitter, I'll send you the article.
At
Each
Monsieur T
station,
with the triple E.
each station costs about $4,000. How did we get to 498 million? How? Plus VAT. Then the night vision goggles, right? 520 or 570 million naira plus. However, on Amazon, you can get high-grade military tactical night vision goggles for 1,516 US dollars. Now, they carefully did not state the quantities being bought for the goggles. Again, this is deliberate misinformation. You're, you're happy to tell us the amount, but you're not happy to tell us the quantity. And this cannot continue to go on. Who buys a lie detector scanner for 498 million? Please, 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 please.
If you have the answer to that question, you just send your messages in because we need to move on to our next story. Okay, Punch newspaper now. Lekki reopening. Government and LCC seek stakeholders' understanding. The Lagos State government urging the people of the state, especially the residents of Lekki and Ikoyi, to show understanding over the proposed reopening of the Lekki Ikoyi Link Bridge toll plaza by the Lekki Concession Company. But is it the stakeholder? Is it the people, the residents that need to show more understanding, or is it the LCC and the government? Your thoughts on this, Fidel?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Shaka. So, as most of us know, um, activities at the Lekki Ikoyi toll gate is supposed to commence on the 1st of April, right? So we are probably going to see personnel of the LCC in that place in the tolling booths the way they used to be before October 2020. And then if you pass that region, if you pass that area, you'd already see police formations, taking strategic points or marching or their vehicles. Okay, so now we see Benga Motosho, the representative of the Lagos State government, saying Lagos State is a people of about 20 million, right? And he says, according to him, we're about over 25 million, I beg your pardon, and there are only 6 million taxpayers. And among 6 million taxpayers, only 4.2 million active taxpayers. I think I feel like he's indicting the LIRS, with these numbers. But let us assume this is the case. Is it the responsibility of the people to widen the target or ensure that enough people are within the tax bracket? This is a bit sentimental, okay? I mean, the story says that tolling won't commence till the 14th of April, right? The activities will start on the 1st of April. Tolling
But
won't
there's a
commence.
2 week grace
There's
period.
2 week grace period. But my point is, I do not think that if Lagos State is trying to generate revenue, it is only from the toll gates that Lagos State is going to meet up with whatever is left when it comes to income generation.
All right, and I want to see if I can read a few of your messages before we go. This one in Jeff Oguma saying, Mr. C, not sure it's just one lie detector that's going to be purchased. Mr. C says he has searched, but you know what? You can always find him up on Twitter at Monsieur C. In fact, up on social media at Monsieur C, and you can find Fidel at Isotene. Because we come to the end of the show, but very quickly, who was it that said this? Um, Yes. Okay. Tunji said, it's less than $5,000 to buy the scanner and line up the FEC to start with and the senators for a test run. And on that note, we end the show. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me for today's episode of Freshly Pressed. Coming up at 8:15, it is going to be entertainment down inside the grapevine.
The headlines, the stories, the
I didn't even get to read any. So many messages came in that I just